It's okay to forgive your father or your uncle or whatever the situation is. It's not forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, man. Forgiveness sometimes is an ongoing thing, and that made all the difference for me.
Hey guys, and welcome to the SkilledDad podcast. My name's Zach Grisha. I'm your host. And if this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We're glad that most likely your dad, might be a mom, doesn't really matter because we enjoy having all the different people that come in and can learn from great stories. And we get pumped from some of the things that we take away. And sometimes we have conversations that are a little challenging. And, the cool thing about podcasts, although on YouTube, same deal. If you're sitting there on your couch right now and it's late at night, kids are to bed, and you're just like in quadrant 4 right now, thanks for, spending your time here and not on Netflix. But sometimes we hit on topics that can challenge us, can challenge our thinking, can challenge our approach. And that's actually kind of the point in a lot of ways, because one of our goals with being skilled dads is that we're continuously growing and we're continuously stretching our abilities, because as our kids grow, we need some different skills to be able to be effective with them. And as we grow, we change as people. And hey, we want to keep the spear sharp, and the saw sharp, whatever metaphor you want to use, so that we can be effective. And tonight or today, whenever you're listening, we're going to be hitting on a topic through a gentleman's story that I'll introduce you to in a second, that I think for many of us might be a little bit like, oh, that can be tricky, because there's a lot of components in that. And so bear with me. We'll get to what that topic is here in a minute. But tonight, I've got a gentleman with me that we had a chance to speak, prior to the conversation. And sometimes you just get on the video call or the phone with somebody and connect. And this gentleman's like that for me. We've already had a great time, and I'm excited to hear more of his story and what we can take away as dads. He's a dad of 2, and he has an impactful story that he's also using and putting into play to help other people. So we're glad to have him on here. And I want to introduce Scott Stewart to the SkilledDad podcast. Scott, welcome.
Zach, thanks for having me, pal. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I think we're cut from the same cloth. I think we could have hours of conversation off camera of similar interests and philosophies and things in life. So thanks for having me, man.
Oh, absolutely. We could probably have the conversations on camera, but we'd lose everybody at some point. I guess if they want to tune in, that's fine.
That's
good.
True. Yeah.
Scott, you're joining me from the West Coast in the Oregon area. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And at least at time of recording, it's still wintertime. You might be listening to this when it's closer to spring. But you are, you're enjoying the same seasonal fun that we all are right now as dads.
Is that what we're going to call it, Zach?
Seasonal,
okay. Seasonal
I could
fun.
call it
All
some
right.
other things.
Yeah.
But I'm choosing to look at it as a fun challenge. I just talked about stretching and growing. Yeah. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. Oh my gosh. But Scott, I gave a very brief intro. You are a speaker as well, using your story and talking to a lot of different groups. I'd love to hand the mic over to you. Tell us, about yourself, and then we'll take it from there if that works for you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You bet. So yeah, I'm an Oregon kid, born and raised here, still live in the same little small town that I grew up in, and kind of an ag town, if you will. And
not a Goonie.
No, not a Goonie, more of a redneck. If the truth be known, there's probably, right, even though I'm kind of I turned a white collar guy, there's still 15% redneck in me. That'll never go away. So there's that,
Not a bad thing. Yeah.
No, but yeah. So born here, raised here, went through grade school, middle school, high school. Raised my family here in this small town. My daughters, and actually married the neighbor girl. If you can believe that. Yeah, she lived.
Nice.
She lived right next door. We were 4 years apart. And of course, when you're 16 and you're looking at a 12-year-old, it's like, yeah, no, 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 no. And, but I got a little older and she did too. And I was like, whoa, dang, that girl, yeah, she turned out to be a looker. So anyway,
Things changed.
yeah, things changed, right? The rest is history with that. But no, in regards to parenting, to talk a little bit about growing up, I was adopted. I was adopted at birth, and the mom and dad who raised me, and we'll just call them, it's mom and dad because that's the only mom and dad I really knew.
Sure.
I learned quick, Zach, that my father had some pretty extreme anger issues, and he could go from 0 to 10, brother, in a matter of seconds. It didn't take minutes; it took seconds. And as a result of that, I grew up in fear, because when my dad, when he would get mad, it wasn't just his voice elevated. It took on a different meaning. Like, whoa, step back, get out of the way. You don't know what's going to come flying. You don't know you don't know what's going to happen. And so I grew up in fear of him. And as you could imagine with somebody like that, you can never be good enough to please him. You just can't. And my mom, who I was closer to, much significantly closer to, uh, my mom was, I call it, she was a world-class enabler. Zach, she always had an excuse for why he was mad, why he was yelling, why he was short-tempered. She always had an excuse. And really what she was doing was just enabling him. And so I grew up in that, and combine that with some ADD. I had a real tough time learning, and as you can imagine, with a father with a short fuse, his remedy, if you will, to fix that was to yell louder and just to punish me more, or take things away, or discipline me more, or on occasion even hit me more. But that was his answer. And as we know, that doesn't work. That's not the answer, but that's what he thought the answer was.
Right.
And so when I reached in high school, Zach, when I got a driver's license, oh brother, that meant
You're out of
freedom.
here.
Oh man, heck yes, that
Yeah.
meant freedom, because now I wasn't stuck at home, and I could, I had my own car, and I could go places and get out from underneath him, but I still lived under his roof. And so that fear and that anger was still there. And when I turned 18, I had the opportunity to move out, and I did. It was, combine that with the ADD. I was like, I had no interest in going back to school, right? Because I just couldn't retain information. I couldn't stay focused. My brain was always going off in left field, right field, thinking about everything else except what I was trying to focus on. And so it was kind of a combination for me. It's like, I'm out of school, I'm free, and I don't have to be around this man who just constantly, I'm walking on eggshells.
Right.
So that kind of sets the stage in the house that, that I grew up in.
How old were you when you were adopted?
Yeah, I was at birth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I was at birth. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I don't think I didn't know that you were adopted, and I was curious at what age, and did you have siblings?
So my mom and dad, when that would have been 12, I think, they uh, took in a foster child. And I called him my brother. I still call him my brother. We don't talk. We don't hardly talk, but so he was 4 years older than me. 5 years, 4 years, 4
So
years older than me.
you were 12, and so he was 17.
Yeah, actually, I think now that I'm doing the math, Zach, I think I was like 11, and he was probably 15.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
When he came in to live at our house with us.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So for 12 years, essentially, it was you, your mom, and your dad.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and this was going on, and that's where all the energy went.
For sure. And when my brother, when he came, my dad was equally just as hard on him. Maybe not in the beginning, but it didn't take long. And, he had that same negative energy and yelling and getting mad about this or that or the other, so it was not looking back on it, I didn't know any different. I knew something wasn't right, and it shouldn't be like this, but you don't have much to compare it to. So
Yeah. When you moved out at 18, did you just move like down? Where'd you go?
yeah, my folks had a property about in a nearby town, about 9 miles away, and just an older mobile home on some almost 5 acres. And so my grandmother used to live there. My grandmother moved into town, and then I moved out there. So I had a little bit of land to goof off on and have fun. And can I say it had some crazy parties? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
I mean, you have 5 acres by yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
Boys are gonna do what boys are gonna do.
Sure.
Yeah. Man. Okay. So, I mean, it's always one of the topics that comes up a lot is short fuses, and this sounds like it was a level above what maybe I hear often, which is, you come home from a long day, you walk into the kitchen, and hopefully everyone's happy to see you, and whatever it is that you were handling during your day job, hopefully you've got something that you can transition from that work mode to home mode. But sometimes it just sticks with us, and then our patience is very low. Doesn't sound like that's what was going on here.
No.
This sounds like an abusive,
It was. And to put some context to it, Zach, I didn't learn this until later, but his dad was the same way. And then his dad's dad was the same way. And so, to be fair, he was raising a son the only way he knew, and that was the way that it had been taught to him from the men who before him,
So the cycle.
It really was. Yeah, generational cycle of emotional verbal abuse. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I know some listening, early on, we probably don't talk about this enough, but early on, you look back and if you're on this podcast and you're coming back more and more, and I appreciate you guys for doing that, and I'm glad that we can do this together. There's usually a reason, right? Either they're learning to learn and get better, which hopefully we all are, regardless of where you are. The second part is that comes up quite a bit is I saw one thing and I know that's not what I want to do, and so I'm looking to break the cycle, do things differently. And one of the tricky things is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater as well, because even when there's things that are not good, maybe we can hold on to those for a longer period of time, and over time that can get a little distorted and we lose some of the things that also were good. Now I know, every scenario can be different in that how we look at it. And that's the cool thing is the context of our lives make our story different, and everything has some value and good lessons. What we do is it's our choice. There is also a common DNA that a lot of us have, that if we talk to enough guys, we find out, oh, I wasn't the only one that had this thing. And that's kind of the magic of it. So,
right.
So you're 18, living on, partying on the land, having the friends over, looking for Bigfoot, because I'm pretty sure if he lives anywhere in the U.S., he's out in like Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
I know you weren't in Bend, but Right. It's a lot of green space out there. So, between that and kind of when you became a dad, like what did life look like?
Yeah. So you know, I from about 18 to 22, I was just kind of in party mode, um, because I had had so much negative experience, and the I think the element of being free and actually enjoying life instead of feeling like I have to walk on eggshells,
Mhm.
um, it was so freeing. It was just liberating. It was like I this is great. I enjoyed life, When I started hanging out with my friends, it was fun. It was fun. I didn't have to walk on eggshells. We could. It wasn't a party season 24/7 by any means, but it just life was enjoyable. And I worked hard. I had several different jobs and sometimes a second or a third job to make money because I like to spend it and like to have fun.
Sure.
And but I noticed during this time though that when I would stop in at my mom and dad's house, that my dad's anger was even, Zach, it was even doing this. It was, if that is, if that is actual
Hmm.
possible.
Hmm.
And it would get where I would stop in at their house and my mom would say, your dad's working on the whatever, he's out in the garage. Can you help him? I can't help him. And I'd go out there and my gosh, within 2 minutes, he is switch is flipped and he is PO'd and yelling and throwing a tantrum. And at that point, I don't live in his house. I just turn around and walk out, and I'd go hug my mom and say, yeah, no, I'm out. I'm done. And I'd get in the car and leave. But that escalated. And until uh, when I was 22, we had life kind of changed. I had an event on a summer night. Do you want me to kind of share some of that?
Yeah.
With
Whatever you're
with
comfortable with, for sure.
so it was August and it was 1991 and it was a Monday night, August 5th, actually. I remember it quite well. And I was 22 years old and I'm just again living out on the kind of on the land in the mobile home and had a girlfriend and I was scheduled to have dinner with my mom and dad that night. And after work, and so I went over there after work, and lo and behold, it was actually an enjoyable time. He wasn't mad. Um, we had my mom made homemade spaghetti, and sometimes our moms and grandmothers, aunts, they have a meal that they home cook from scratch, and it's just over the top, and that was mom's spaghetti for sure.
Nice.
And yeah, we had a great meal, and I was there at their house, probably close to 2 hours, and, it was actually it really was, it was enjoyable. My dad's mood was, pretty moderate, and, we exchanged, had good conversation, and I got ready to leave, and I walked to the front door of their house, and my mom followed me, said goodbye to my dad from, across the room and see you later, dad. And my mom followed me out the door and she says, hey, she says, turn around here and give me a hug, like any good mom would do.
Hmm.
And, I turned around and I hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. And I said, I love you, mom. And she said, I love you too. And what I didn't know was that was going to be the last time I ever saw her. And later that night, in a absolute fit of rage is the only word I know, Zach, the only word I know how to explain it. But he he lost it. He went over the top, and without getting too graphic, somewhere around 9:30 that night, my mom was laying in her bed asleep. At least I hope she was asleep. He went into the garage and he got a stainless steel bar that was about 2.5 feet long, about about that big around. And while she lay
Like 2-inch
yeah,
bar.
yeah, while she lay sleeping in her bed, he went in and took a bar to her. Very, I can still remember the walls. After they removed my mom's body, I can still remember seeing the walls and the blood splatter on the walls. And it was, it's some things you never get out of your head, you know?
Yeah. Oof.
And
Sorry, man.
yeah, thank you. You know, it's interesting. We sit here and talk about this, and I've shared this story a lot. I went through a lot of counseling. I've done a lot of self work to overcome it, but there's still that emotional piece. You know, when you think about it, I picture my mom, and as you might imagine, and as the listeners, you know, life forever changed. You know, from that night on, and of course, I was the last one in that house. And so, you know, law enforcement, anybody who's in law enforcement watching this, they'll tell you I was a prime suspect because I was the last one that was there in that house.
You had just left the date night.
Yeah, correct.
They had a good conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, he was hauled off to jail, and they didn't quite have the evidence to hold him, so they let him go. And then right after, about a week later, we had mom's service. And I'm going over the highlights here. There's some things that happened in between there, but after mom's service, the day after, he admitted to it. He admitted to killing her. And so, as you might imagine, the family we were all just rocked. I mean, you know, brother, cousins, my grandmother, friends, neighbors, you know, just absolutely raw. And to speed this along a little bit, he was in the county jail. And now I have a half sister that he had a marriage before my mom.
Got it.
And so he had two daughters. So I you know, she would be my half sister. And we weren't ever real close, but we were in communication, you know, from time to time. And she found out about this, and then she said, I have to go down and look at him in his eyes. I have to go look in his eyes and to see for myself, did he really do this, you know? Because she didn't live in the nearby town. She lived like an hour and a half away.
Okay.
So she asked me, she said, do you want to go down and see him? Now, the last time I saw him was at my mom's service. So for some reason, there was part of me that said, okay, I'll go. Now I'm, as you might imagine, I'm numb. I'm just numb. I can't believe any of this has happened. You know, I'm just.
I don't think I can imagine. I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's next level.
Yeah. You go numb, I think, so you can still function. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, we go into the county jail, and, you know, it's just like in the movies. You know, you pick up the phone, you're looking through the glass. And I looked at him, and I'm looking at him. Now, my dad was a world class. I mean, he had military experience in manipulation. This man was a skilled master at manipulation. And which was another element that I grew up under, was constantly being manipulated. So I'm looking at him through the glass, and he looks at me and he goes, right with those cold eyes, he looks at me, he goes, do you think I killed your mom? And I said, I don't know what to think. I'm just hoping this is a nightmare that I wake up from. You know, I truly, I was having a difficult time processing it.
Yeah.
And he looked right at me. He looked right in my eyes, and he goes, I didn't. He goes, but I told them that I did to cover up for you because I thought you did it.
Wow.
True story. God is my witness. To which, I mean, you picture yourself, what would you say? What would you say in something like that, right? You're talk about the highest level of manipulation.
Right. You question reality at that point.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
like,
yes.
What?
Right. It's, you know, it's so twisted. It's so twisted. And I don't even remember what he said after that. I just was shocked, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that was one of the last times I saw him, was looking at him through that glass and having him say that to me.
Mhm. How long was he in there for?
Well, he was in the county about approximately 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. And in the state of Oregon, now I can't speak for other states, but in the state of Oregon, if you confess to murder, you go straight to sentencing. There's no reason to have a trial. You go straight to sentencing. And so it took them that long, to put together a trial and all of the appeals and all of that kind of crap, that was going on. And so I was there at his sentencing, which was somewhere around 3.5 to 4 years later. I saw him at the sentencing from across the room. But after that, sorry, Zach, to answer your question, after that, he went to state prison.
Like for life, or?
Yeah, wouldn't that have been, one would think, right? One would think. So along the way here, about 3 months, there's a piece that I've got to add in here that will help this to understand. About 3 months after all this went down, there were 3 little girls that came forward. And at the time they were little girls. Of course, they're not today, but at the time they came forward and basically, in short, said, yeah, he inappropriately touched me and he did things to me that no other person has done. And so now we have 3 counts of child molestation. So, which is a whole nother story in itself. But as I'm, again, skimming across the top of this thing. And so at the time of sentencing, and this is not a political statement, I'm just telling you the facts, because we all know Oregon, California, Washington, very blue states. And this was in 95.
4, 5,
4.5, 95. He got a mandatory 20 years with the child molestation and the murder charge. And he had already done at that point, let's just call it 4 years. So he had 16 more years to go in the state ban. No eligibility for parole.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, I've heard parts of your story. When you hear all, I mean, as a dad, I can't imagine. As a husband, I can't imagine. That's coming from, my context and to you. How did you deal with that? Because you've got 2 kids. And so between the time that happened and the time that I guess maybe you married your, she grew up, but your neighbor sweetheart.
Yeah.
And then had 2 kids and now to speak with you and talk with you, like, how did that impact you? Even before becoming a dad, because after talking with you and knowing some of your story, like you're seemingly in a good place. How'd you deal with that?
Yeah, great question. Well, in the beginning, I didn't. I, like probably most anybody or everybody would have, I self-medicated to get through each day. And that was alcohol for me. It was never hard drugs, but it was alcohol. And that's how I functioned. I functioned for the next 2 years, just to numb the sensories enough to function. And it was interesting. I was at work one day, and this coworker, he's a Christian man, and he came up to me, and I was having a rough day. And he sat down next to me at the lunch table in the lunchroom, and he says, "How's it going?" And the typical answer is, "Yeah, it's fine." And he goes, "No," he goes, "Scott, how's it going?" And oh crap, Zach, I lost it. Did
you have a good relationship with him? Like, did you know him well?
It was an okay relationship. He was a coworker, and I think he could kind of see, he could see behind the curtain. and he knew that, I was probably hurting, and man, I just lost it. And he said, you can't keep living like this, right? You're headed down a really dark road. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, let me help you, and, I said, I'd appreciate that. And so to get on with the story, I started going to counseling. And for me, I had found, the right counselor, or let's call it a therapist. And some people don't have good experiences with that. And part of my opinion, part of that is because they maybe they didn't find the right one. Call it the universe, call it God, whatever. But he arranged for me to have the right one. And it was a counselor. And I went to her for 2.5 years. And I also, during that time, I had kind of immersed myself in self-development and personal growth. And so there was a lot, Zach, there was a lot of, I call undoing.
Sure.
There was a tremendous amount of undoing and kind of reprogramming my head and getting things situated. Because here's the deal. I was a young man. I knew that if I didn't deal with this stuff, Zach, it was going to screw me up. It's going to screw me up the rest of my life. And I also knew if I didn't fix it, I was going to carry on this generational cycle. And I don't know how I knew that, but I just knew it. I just knew that if I didn't fix myself, if I didn't heal myself, I was going to be a horrible dad. And I think there's an element there that I just wanted to. I didn't want to carry this crap with me. I didn't, that anger and that resentment, I didn't want to be that guy. And that was enough to drive me to really work on myself. So for the next, for the next 8 years, 7 years, I just went to work on myself. And instead of burying my emotions and feelings, I let myself feel things I didn't want to. But I dealt with it, I dealt with it. And so that when my wife came along, to be wife, I was mostly healed up because I had really made a serious commitment to getting myself healthy,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That takes courage too.
Yeah.
I applaud you for, you're 22 to 20, however old you
about
were
28 or 29. 28. Those were some healing years in there, brother. Big time.
Okay. Well, to even have, I think the wherewithal and external viewpoint of yourself to understand that this was going to be a problem rather than being so immersed in it. I mean, that's a gift in itself. But also kudos to the guy that came up to you and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine." "Oh, like, how are you doing?" Most people ask that question as a nuance or a formality to just kind of a hello salutation.
Right.
When people actually ask you, that can be really impactful. Clearly it was for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I had another question in there. It might come back to me. So you were 28, but you had gone through and you had figured this work out. Otherwise you were going to either repeat the cycle or be in a place that was not going to be good. You met you reconnected, it sounds like, maybe with your wife.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, let's fast forward a little bit. And this is the great thing about people's stories. And if, you're intrigued, like, I want to learn more, you could go forever, and that's the cool thing. It's got some power in there. In the context of this podcast, you did become dad. And so, and you were, you had kind of done the work and took the courage to step into the thing that was uncomfortable and challenging, dealing with some stuff you didn't want to deal with, but to step into the fear, that's amazing. When you became dad, like, let's just start with this. How did that impact you? How did your story impact you as you became dad?
So I was, I became very intentional. And I think a lot of people through life are on autopilot. And what I love about your podcast and others is that it helps to break up the autopilot. It's like, no, hold on, stop. let's become intentional for a period, for a season of through life. Let's work on these things. Let's just not go through on autopilot. And I really had just a strong sense of in my heart, in my gut, that I wanted to be a great dad for my kids. I wanted to be. I did not want to. I did not want to repeat. I did not want my daughters to know what it was like to grow up with a dad like I grew up with. Right. I use this example. On Sunday nights, very common. Sunday nights growing up, my dad would have a Penthouse magazine and he would sit in his favorite chair and he would go through that Penthouse magazine for a couple hours every Sunday night. I can't tell you how many Sunday nights I remember him doing that. And as a little boy, I would come over to him and he'd close it up and kind of, put away from me. But when you're a little kid, you don't know what that stuff is. But that was okay to him. And I wanted to bring my daughters up, my children. I wanted to bring them up in a very different environment. I just really did. I can't illustrate that enough. And so when it came to the topic of healing myself, and another big topic, Zach, was forgiving the man. It it was something that I felt very strong about doing. Because if I wanted to be a good father, what kind of father would I be? And what kind of example would I be setting for my kids if I held this anger and these grudges against my father? That's not setting a very good example, right? And
Well,
so
you're
I
right.
wanted to.
Oh, you're good. I think we have a lag. I can edit this part out, but there might be a little lag.
Yeah.
One thing, you're right, but how many are able to fake it really good? And so forgiveness is it's like a powerful word. It stirs a lot of thoughts on what that is. Somebody asks you about that, some different things come to mind, whatever it might be in the person's heart and mind. So I guess the question being, can I be a good dad or intentional and working through it and still hold on to that, but just no one really knows?
So I think, Zach, to point to your question is I do think there are a lot of parents, a lot of dads, that they probably fake it, they hide it, or they don't openly talk about it to their kids. But, they were raised by a man that wasn't always nice, and for me, I just didn't want to carry that around. I didn't want to put on the facade. I didn't want to bury it deep. I wanted to deal with it. I wanted to genuinely let it go. And I knew that was also setting an example to my kids. So yeah, to answer your question, I think there are some dads that are able to kind of hide it. And I just didn't want to be that dad. I just was very intentional about it.
But I would maybe also throw out the idea, maybe it's not hiding, like an intentional, like I'm going to put this in my pocket so no one can see, but I've got it. But more like some of us are really good about compartmentalizing. So we can put it away and shut it in there for a while, but then every now and then it creeps out. Something triggers it, or it just pops out and it's still with you. So on the topic of forgiveness, I kind of want to sit here for a minute. Number one, how did you get to a place where, how can you forgive somebody that does something like that?
Yeah, the very that's a great question, and to the point is you have to want to forgive them, and that may sound very, very shallow, but I will assure you it's very deep. Because if you are holding thoughts of revenge, if you're holding thoughts of anger and hurt, and you're kind of burying them or compartmentalizing them, and you're not wanting to forgive, you won't. And through my therapy and whatnot, I had done enough of the processing to let go of the anger. Now, doesn't mean I still didn't have moments, but I truly wanted to get, I just didn't want to carry this around like a backpack full of bricks. I just didn't. I wanted to let go of it. And I think that is one of the number one keys. I mean, even in what was it in AA? What's the number one thing that I think it's number one that they say is you have to admit that you're powerless over it, and you have to come to a point where you don't want it. And I was at that point of I don't want to carry this around, and I want to let go of it. And so that's the number one thing. I think number two, real quick, is I had to have a healthy understanding of what forgiveness is. Now, it's been my experience that a lot of men, not all, but a lot of men do not have an accurate belief of what forgiveness is and who it's for.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, go ahead.
What is your definition of forgiveness? So that I have the context, or those listening have the context of what that means to you.
Yeah. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness plays no part for the other person. Forgiveness is for us. Forgiveness is for us. The second part of that is, what does it mean to forgive? I can still talk about the event. And although I may feel some sorrow, I may feel sadness, I may have vivid memories that cause emotions. It doesn't send me off the tracks. It doesn't stir up a bunch of anger. I'm not pissed. I'm still going to sleep okay tonight because I have let go of it, and I've allowed it to not attach itself to me. I've completely let go of it. I think that's probably you're releasing the anger and the hurt. That's, I think, is a pretty accurate description of what forgiveness is and who it's for.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought that part up. Because I think sometimes it can be confused in saying that, or thinking like when we're forgiving someone, we're doing them a favor. It's like,
right.
There's another word that I would associate with that, which is pride. Like, it's like that they need my forgiveness. Like it's like, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to forgive you. Yeah. At the end of the day, they might not even know that they've got it. I mean, we're talking about a very serious thing that happened with you. There's other things that maybe have been done that either 100%. Maybe they were even unaware of because it's never really been brought up. We just carried it, or that, that we're carrying. And so it's like, I'm going to do you this favor and forgive you. But really, we're the ones that are punishing ourselves. That's like the oxymoron in the whole situation.
You ever hear people, just in general, not specific towards anybody, but you ever hear somebody say, "I'll never forgive them"?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, well, wait a minute. Okay. Well, who do you think you're punishing? You think they care? You think they give two craps? It's because the insinuation is, I'm going to release them. No, the forgiveness piece is here. It's for me releasing, not for them, right? My father never asked for forgiveness. He never had a change of heart. He never came back later and said he was sorry for what he did. He never showed remorse. And I still forgave him anyway. Not for him. Not 1 ounce was for him. It was for me. So I didn't have to carry this backpack full of bricks around with me the rest of my life.
Yeah. No, that's the part that is the skill for a lot of us to be able to take away and to learn. Regardless, maybe it's not a parent, maybe it's a work thing. Maybe it's a previous career thing that happened. Maybe it's a friend. But at the end of the day, we're still having to carry that backpack, and sometimes we're the only ones that know. So we got to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But with the remaining time that we have, and really, we didn't have a chance to hit on all of your kind of dad story. We have lots of dad stories, but this is the skill that I think, we could take away. What were the things that you did? I mean, it sounds like you did a lot of things. But to even set up like a baby action plan as for if somebody's got that and they're dealing with it and they want to figure it out because they're tired of carrying around this backpack. We're not in a Spartan race. This is life. What would you say for somebody like, hey, here's some of the first things that you can go do?
I think one of the biggest things you can do is to understand that forgiveness is a process. And I'm not going to tell you that process is easy. And I'm not going to tell you that process is only takes 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 years, or 13 years. It's not my position to tell you that. But here's what I did. And I made a commitment to it. Every time that anger would start to boil up and I'd start to think about it and my mind would start to run away with it, I had to become intentional and say, nope, stop. No, stop. I am not going to go there. I choose to forgive him. And I'd say it out loud. Now, depending upon where I was at, right, I might say it under my breath. I wouldn't shout it from the rooftops, depending upon where I was at. But that became a habit. Now, was it easy to do? No, but you got to start. You have to start. And I started. And every time that would pop up, right, I would say, nope. I'm choosing to forgive him. I'm not going to entertain this. I'm not going to hold on to this. And then that would happen at Christmas. That happened at my wedding when my mom wasn't there. That happened the day my oldest daughter, when she was born. Zach, she's seconds old, brother. I'm holding her in tears and emotions. This life is, and I'm the first one to hold her. And that thought crept into my head. That blankety blank. Wouldn't it have been nice if your mom's here? That blankety blank blank. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. No, I forgive you. And I had to forgive him again when my second daughter was born. And I had to forgive him the time where all my buddies and we went up in the hills when the snow level came down. We took our 4-wheel drive trucks and went up in the snow, built a big bonfire, and everybody had their dad there except me. And I had to forgive him again. And I had to forgive him when we bought our first house. I had all these things that I had to do. And those are choices, because forgiveness is not a one-time thing. Sometimes forgiveness is an ongoing thing. And it's been years now, Zach. It's been years. I don't have those thoughts anymore. I don't. It's been a long time. There was probably 8 to 10 years that I had to do that. And I've probably forgiven that man close to 140 to 160 times. I think if there's one thing that we can leave some of the men on here, it's that. Is it's okay to forgive him more than once. It's okay to forgive your father, or your uncle, or whatever the situation is. Forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, man. Forgiveness sometimes is an ongoing thing. And that made all the difference for me.
I chuckled slightly only because I literally just wrote down forgiveness is not a one-time event. Like I've not thought, the pathway has now been created. So thank you. Cause I've not thought of it through that context.
Yeah.
And forgiveness is a big topic. It could probably be another whole episode about that.
Sure.
But the other thing that I wrote down just before that, and I actually ended up tying the words together, but, hearing you talk about it and you have this event of forgiveness over time until it now becomes less of the upfront in your face or in your mind. But it kind of reminded me of back when you said, as soon as you turned 18, you went off into your acreage and found a different place. You could come back to it, but then eventually you're going on. And so I equated, forgiveness is freedom. All the things we just talked about.
That's 100%. 100%, which hence I can talk to you and things about this. And, I'm not mad. I'm not angry about it. And I think that's the place, that's the beautiful freedom in it when you have thoroughly, completely, authentically forgiven, is that you can have those conversations and it doesn't send you off the deep end, man. You can still function without having a meltdown, breakdown, or being triggered. Or I still have moments when I wish my mom was here, and I'm sad about that, and of course. But I don't have any anger towards my father. That was I was able to let go of all that.
And that's how you can lead your girls and showing them how to forgive and how it impacts you. I think before I asked the question, can you fake it or compartmentalize it? But I think you just answered that in a different way for me, which is, when you truly have it, now you can authentically have those conversations without having the other things that overshadow it. That would be a head tilt. Like, okay, clearly it still is a bothersome thing, but it's not the same emotional, angry type thing that it could conjure up.
Yeah.
Regardless of what someone's thing is they're carrying.
Correct.
Yeah. I feel enlightened from this conversation. It raises some new thought ways, which I think is really good. And I really appreciate you just sharing even that in the short time that we've had.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to share. And any last words of encouragement, if I may, just real quick, is just to let, for the dads that are out there, this is, I've given you, in what, 50 minutes here, years of overcoming this. And my challenge to you is to say, look, if you've got something that you need to let go of, guys, you got to start. You have to start. It may feel scary. It may get a little uncomfortable. You may have to get a little vulnerable, but you got to start. Start that process and give yourself some grace. Feel those feelings. That's part of being human, is feeling the feelings, the anger, the sadness. You may have to go out in the middle of nowhere and just yell and scream and drop a bunch of F-bombs and take a baseball bat and hit some trees. To get it out, right? To let it out, because forgiveness is not about forgetting. That has nothing to do with this. This is about processing it, letting it out, and healing from it, so that you can go on and live a normal life. So give yourself some grace, but you got to start. You got to start the process if you haven't done it.
No, it's a great challenge. Great challenge. It's a great challenge. If people want to learn more about what you're doing or learn more about your story, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm in the process right now of setting up a YouTube channel. So it's not up yet, but then down the road, by the time people watch this, it may very well be. But so that's in process though at the time of this recording, Zach. But a YouTube channel. You can find me on Facebook. I have a personal and I have a professional page. If you send me a friend request and it's and I don't know you, I probably won't accept it. Don't take it wrong. I get those all the time, but find my professional page. That's Scott Stewart, author, speaker, encourager. Follow along. I'm always doing some memes and thought-provoking things, and a lot of it's around forgiveness, but there's some other stuff too. I've got an Instagram account, but I don't really do a lot of this kind of stuff on it. You can find most of the other stuff on the YouTube page or on the Facebook page.
Okay. Are the social links on your website?
You can go to scottstewartspeaking.com. My social links are on there as well. Again, scottstewartspeaking.com. And if this inspired you and you have a question or you want to share with me, was I able to speak some life into you, send me an email, scottstewartspeaking@gmail.com, scottstewartspeaking@gmail.com. I'd love just to hear from you. And awesome. If I can offer a word of encouragement, I'll do it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And for those that are listening, you can go find the links to the website. I'm not going to put the email in there necessarily, but the website will be in the links in show notes, and for you YouTubers down there. And then on my website, SkilledDad.com, you can go and see, I call out the links for the different episodes, so you can go find him there. And then when you get that YouTube channel, you got to let me know, so I can shout it out and put it out there for you.
You betcha. That sounds good, Zach. I'll do it. Sounds great.
Scott, I loved having you, man.
Thanks, pal.
Powerful story. Love what you're doing with it. And, for the lessons that you can share with others, because, we didn't get the manual on it. Some of us don't have these conversations, and I'm glad that you're willing to have the conversation with us so we can, lighten our load a little bit, at least know where to start.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. It's been an honor to be on your show. You're doing good things.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. We will keep in touch. Scott Stewart speaking, YouTube channel coming at you soon, whatever it's going to be called. It's going to be great. Well, guys, if you've made it this far into the podcast, I want to say thanks for being part of this story. I knew some of the story that Scott had. I didn't know all the details. And so I'm kind of like taking it in there with you, processing, and like, okay, I'm on a video. And so now how do I respond to this thing? You can respond however you want, but, the F word is a tough one for some of us. The F word can be tough. I'm not talking about the F bomb. I'm talking about the forgiveness aspect. And when I asked Scott the question of, well, hey, can you be a good dad, quote unquote, good dad, be an intentional dad, and still be carrying around that stuff and people may not know. I think I said that probably with a little bit of my own thought of, well, yeah, you can, because you can compartmentalize it. You can kind of hold it in. The dirty secret is you still know it, you still have it, and it can be heavy. And it also can impair our effectiveness and our impact, because something in there is going to be holding us back. Anger and bitterness will come out in some shape or form at some point. So I will echo Scott's challenge that, hey, if you've got some stuff to let go of, I'd encourage you to take some of the steps, start doing that. I love what he said. I wrote it down and then he said it, and, we're on the same page. I love it. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's something that we have to continue to do to remind ourselves. It's like a muscle we have to develop. When we start feeling that twitch, we gotta flex it and push back if that's what we've committed to doing and we want to do it. It's hard to do things if we don't want to do them. Sometimes it can feel good to be like, I'm going to be mad. It really only impacts us. We're not doing anybody a favor by forgiving them. We're doing ourselves one. And I also love what he said that, the metaphor of like carrying it in the backpack. The more we put in that backpack, the heavier it gets over time. And eventually it'll start to show on our pretty little faces because we're still carrying it. But if we can find that freedom, that's going to help us to be better at being dad, be better at being husband, be better at enjoying the time that we're given. And I would just echo that challenge. Hey, let's get after it. Let's do some work in a way that, keeps us in the fight better and also makes us more impactful. If, again, you made this on the podcast, you are part of that group. You can do that. Scott had the courage to step into the fear of it. You can too. And I appreciate you being on here and just joining our conversation. If you want to learn more, you can go to SkilledDad.com. We're doing more on the social media. So at SkilledDad on Instagram, TikTok, if it's, still around at the time when this comes out. And then also our YouTube channel, at SkilledDad is where you find us. You can also go to YouTubefordads.com, which will take you to the SkilledDad YouTube channel. We've got some more things coming out. And then the last thing, if you heard something in this that you've got a good buddy and you're like, how do I broach this conversation? Well, you can share this with him. Hey, I heard this interesting story. You won't believe what happened. Share it with him. And maybe it'll spur up a conversation between the two of you. And you can be that guy that came to Scott and said, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. No, how are you doing? Sometimes that one question, when you actually want to know the answer, you got to be ready for it, because they're going to tell you, because someone's actually asking. And that's a really good way to be a good friend. Ultimately, I hope that you can take something away from this story and apply to your journey to becoming the skilled dad.